Hey internets, been a while since I've done a meme video, and you know what? Today is the day, specifically the day to poke at Bluesky. Now, if you have not heard of Bluesky, the best way to understand it is as a heavily astroturfed attempted clone of old Twitter. So here's a quick rundown of the history. Back in the pre-Musk times, the old times, if you were around then, you might remember that, first off, the blue checkmark on Twitter was just for social elites and celebrities only. And now, of course, in the Musk times, anybody can verify by simply paying for it and providing their ID. That's one difference that made the Cathedral mad, but it's insignificant compared to the major difference, which is the censorship. Old Twitter used to be censored to Pluto and back. There's still some political censorship on new Twitter. For instance, one thing I've noticed is that a lot of Mises Caucus libertarians tend to get significantly less views per like that they get, which is a little suspicious, but nowhere near as bad as it used to be. Old Twitter was so horribly censored that simply having an opinion that offended trash lib sensibilities would get your comment immediately deleted, your account suspended, etc., etc. Which is why I find myself posting on Twitter, or X these days as it's now called, because it's at least good enough to be worth posting there. Back in the pre-Musk times, it was not worth it to post there. I recall one time all I did was simply refute someone on why they were wrong and provided a link to why they were wrong. But because that person had the correct trademark political opinions, my post got deleted and my account got suspended for 3 days, when all I did was just link to an article that refuted them. And that's what's kind of hilarious about Bluesky and what makes it so bad, is that it's an attempt to clone an experience that sucked. Old Twitter was absolute trash. It was a censorship hellhole. Unless you were to the left of Obama, your account would get banned for the stupidest possible reasons. And Bluesky decided to, well, bring that concept back. And you might be wondering, well, why the heck would people want to flock to a severely pro-censorship platform? And the answer, again, is Astroturfing. You see, a lot of the censorship back in old Twitter was largely in favor of the establishment statist media. And so when Musk changed that, they of course got very angry. And so the creation of Bluesky came with a lot of mainstream corporate media, all just kind of singing Bluesky's praises while publishing hit pieces about why new Twitter is bad. So we saw this massive establishment propaganda campaign to try and convince everybody to come to Bluesky. In addition to this, they also had bots. Lots and lots of bots, especially on Plebit. There were tens of thousands of bots making posts about how Bluesky is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that just kind of shows you how crappy of an experience Bluesky is trying to create, because their attempt to become the new Twitter has failed. The users of Bluesky is still nowhere near the users of X these days. But that's really the most hilariously pathetic thing about Bluesky. Imagine being astroturfed this hard and still failing. Lol, LMAO. But it's also not that surprising when you think about it. The only people who really crave the old Twitter experience, from what I've seen, are generally the people who are just so easily offended that they can't tolerate the fact that people who disagree with them exist. And so they think that if everything is just heavily moderated, then those people magically stop existing. And that's exactly what I've seen in the community of Bluesky when going through their posts. It's mostly inhabited by the easily offended types. The people where if you don't have a trash lib opinion on everything, then in their mind you are bad mustache man. And so as a result of Bluesky effectively just being a far left echo chamber, it also comes to no surprise that for similar reasons for why the far left can't meme, Bluesky cannot meme either. In fact, their inability to meme is so ridiculous that it was difficult for me to find memes that were even worth making fun of. Unlike X, where if you search for memes, you will be treated with hundreds of thousands of memes. When searching for memes on Bluesky, you get a lot of things that barely even qualify as memes. Like this, for example, the universe is not required to be in perfect harmony with human ambition. Carl Sagan. Okay, well, while that's not a bad quote, it's not really a meme. Yeah, so apparently the community of Bluesky seems to think that simply random text or quotes with a background behind it counts as a meme. That's not a meme. Kind of reminds me of a previous problem I discussed in other videos about leftist memes in general. They seem to think that words count as a meme. And then this one in particular stands out because it brings us to the next issue with Bluesky. Elon Musk says Italians should stay in Italy and Japanese should stay in Japan. Then why is he in our country? Now, first off, of course, this is coming from someone who says that America is a nation of immigrants, but never mind about that inconsistency. The real issue here is that a lot of Bluesky is just about seething about Elon Musk, which isn't too surprising. I mean, Bluesky community is largely made up of people who left because they think that Musk ruined Twitter in the conversion to X, and so naturally that's what a lot of the community of Bluesky falls into. Spaceship Man Bad, the website. Musk derangement is probably the most common thing you'll see on Bluesky in terms of attempted memes. And since it's also coming from a far left audience, you end up with some really weird, incoherent nonsense. Like this guy who's supporting the idea of burning cop cars, and saying it would be a better choice than buying a Tesla. To save the climate crisis, I guess. Now, aside from the fact that advocating for violence is a very stupid thing to do, one of the interesting things that this post in particular showcases is how Bluesky loves its biased moderation system. Because of course, one of the features of partisan censorship is that the rules are always only really enforced in one direction. Advocating for violence is a very stupid and wrong thing to do, regardless of whether it's coming from the left or the right. However, I'd be willing to bet 1,000 Dogecoins that there's no way you could get away with posting this from a right-leaning perspective on Bluesky. Your account would get nuked from orbit almost immediately if you tried to advocate for violence from the right. But since this guy has the correct trademark alignment, he can of course get away with advocating for as much violence as he wants. Very cringe indeed, and very telling of the quality of moderation staff that Bluesky's users want to be under. Or, you know, lack thereof. And yes, of course, this seething and cringy call to violence is shown in the burning of the Teslas, which apparently heckin' Superman seems to be perfectly okay with, or at least according to this comic right here. So that's one thing that's very common in Bluesky. A whole lot of Elon Musk derangement syndrome, and a whole lot of this cringy advocation for violence, which is perfectly allowed by Bluesky's moderation team, again, so long as you have the correct political opinions. Personally, I don't think anybody should be advocating for aggression like this. It is generally cringe and wrong no matter where it's coming from, but sadly, but to no surprise whatsoever, the Bluesky moderation team seems to disagree with me on that. And so that seems to be another interesting element of Bluesky. Searching for memes occasionally returns you results of people who think that advocating for burning down people's Teslas counts as a meme. And I'm sorry, but no, that is not a good meme. Simply aggressing against people that you don't like is not one good funny meme. Good memes in general usually have something of value to say behind them. They take an idea or truth of reality and they compress them in a way that is funny and punchy, which by the way, even a textless meme can be good in this regard. For example, one of the things that makes the Doge meme funny is the fact that it emphasizes the truth that a lot of times our pets can be funny. If you own a cat or a dog, they know that they occasionally make these expressions that make you smile, and so even that can be a good meme. But these are not good memes. Advocating for destruction of property of someone based on political alignment does not make for good meme. The only thing about these that I can see as being funny is how it shows how completely and totally mentally ill these people are. That's probably not the humor that they intended to give us, but it's definitely the humor that they're conveying. And it's also not really surprising, because this was also an element of old Twitter, having an extremely biased moderation team that selectively enforces the rules based on whether or not you hold the correct opinions, aka the same opinions as the moderation staff. Yeah, that's pretty much how old Twitter functioned. So I guess in a very twisted sense, Bluesky kind of has successfully recreated old Twitter. It's not actually a good thing, but at least it makes it easy for us to understand why the Bluesky community is like this. But enough about Elon Musk derangement syndrome, because I mean that's almost to be expected considering Bluesky's history and how the website was created in the first place. Another aspect of Bluesky due to its heavily left-leaning bias in moderation is that it of course has a lot of capitalism lay bad memes on it. And most of them aren't even funny, they're just kinda dumb. Like this one, capitalism is bad, in the style of the Jurassic Park symbol. And that's it, that's the meme. I mean, I'll be honest here, I can't even tell if some of these accounts are just parody accounts. It's so low quality and so low effort, and just completely devoid of any soul or originality, that it's hard to believe that someone unironically made this. And yet, it exists. And I personally suspect that this low quality is probably just a consequence of the fact that Bluesky is again an echo chamber. It is designed from the ground up to be an echo chamber, and as I showed earlier, the moderation staff don't even pretend to not be biased. And so, for example, naturally, if you search for capitalism on Bluesky, you just get a lot of people complaining about capitalism lay bad. Capitalism is a machine that turns human productivity into death. When was capitalism cured? Commerce is not capitalism. I'm not even cherry picking here. This is just what you get when you search Bluesky for capitalism. Yeah, those 3 posts that I just showed, that's just what organically showed up at the top of the list for the last 2 days when I searched capitalism, which is one of the interesting features of Bluesky that makes it such a ridiculous failure. You don't even have to try to see its artisan bias. Simply doom scrolling Bluesky for maybe 5 minutes or so will make it painfully obvious to any rational human being. And so it's no surprise that what passes for a quote-unquote meme on Bluesky is often nothing more than just a picture of a lay powerful trash lib figure, along with some text or a quote about how capitalism lay bad, which really just points to a common problem in today's political sphere, which is that most people who criticize capitalism have no idea what it really means. Capitalism is really just the ability to engage in voluntary exchange of goods and services, combined with the ethics of property rights. It is essentially just the freedom to invent things, to do things, which then can be used for said trade. It is a freedom to prosper by means of serving others, instead of aggressively forcing people to do so. And yet most capitalism lay bad whining on Bluesky shows a total lack of understanding of this, instead following the tried and true propaganda of socialism is when good thing, capitalism is when bad thing, completely disregarding anything remotely resembling objective truth. Like this post, for example. Happy Socialist Sunday, everyone. Wish our government pursued socialism rather than pursuing right-wing dogma. And then, of course, the image posted here. Finally, some growth. It's our child poverty projections. Now, if you know your history on child poverty, you know hilariously that this is exactly the opposite of what is true. Before the concepts of free market and free exchange of goods and services became popular, children used to live in a state of total abject poverty. It was specifically those freedoms that led to the better invention of medicine, better quality healthcare, and just higher living standards that led to our reality today where most children in developed nations do not live in poverty. Most children under the age of 10 can expect to reach adulthood, which in the past, before capitalism became popular, this was not the case. Child mortality used to be nearly 50% and was like that for thousands of years. It was only in the 1800s when the free market concepts of classical liberalism started to come around that economic growth started to spike and child mortality started to see a very sharp decline. And of course, child poverty rates fell with it. And so this image is just completely the opposite of what is true. It's really amazing how socialists and Marxists seem to just live in an alternative reality. An alternative reality where violence and burning down other people's private property is okay so long as it's for the correct trademark political opinions. An alternative reality where good memes are scarce, to the point where Bluesky memes meet their final and most anti-lolzy form. This kind of garbage right here, where it is just a black background that contains nothing more than just text representing Marxist ideology. The final stages of capitalism, Karl Marx predicted blah 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 blah, doom 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 doom. There's no even attempt to meme anymore. There's no image. It is just black, empty, soulless, mindless garbage, regurgitating again the common misconception, socialism is when good thing, capitalism is when bad thing. And in many ways, it kind of reminds us of modern art. How a lot of modern art is so garbage that it's nothing more than a blank canvas, having absolutely nothing of value to say. And yet these often state-subsidized art museums have the gall to act like it does. And so you end up with an entire museum filled with nothing more than pretentious garbage. And that's, well, pretty much what Bluesky is. In conclusion, Bluesky is a total failure of a website. And yet, despite all this, I'm actually kind of glad that it exists. Because the entire site is populated by people who suffer from the problem of the man who thinks he is fighting the establishment by mindlessly gobbling down establishment and statist media propaganda. It gives us an easy way to study how this particular type of pseudo-intellectual behaves in a controlled environment, allowing us to better understand and peer into the mentality of the eternal midwit. And finally, this video has no sponsor, but I am putting my The Left Can't Meme merch on sale on my good old merch store, and I'll keep it on sale for about a week or so. And I'll also be keeping the Doge merch on an introductory sale for just a little while longer, probably the same amount of time. And I'll include a link to this in the comments and description below, or you can just copy it from right up here. But beyond that, that is all. That is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you want to support me, you can do so on Ko-Fi, Subscribestar, or again by buying some merch. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again. Until next time.